Lee gets KO'd in sparring. Volk and Ilya will be in the cage together this weekend. And Arman Tsarukyan versus Michael Chandler? All that and more on tonight's episode. This is Fighting Tonight. Welcome back to Fighting Tonight. I'm your host, teeballpaul. And here's everything we know about the Kevin Lee knockout so far. Last night, a video exploded on social media of Kevin Lee throwing a flying knee, a very soft one I might add, only to be countered and hit with a vicious right hand by his training partner. Lee was dropped and visibly wobbled after the blow, and is seen here being tended to by former UFC champion and now Killcliff FC coach, Robbie Lawler. The training partner has been identified as Murali Husseinov, a 9-3 Azerbaijani welterweight who most recently fought for Uriah Faber's A1 promotion, and it's unclear where exactly the video came from, but some outlets believe the clip was taken from the Instagram story of another Azerbaijani, the 11-1 bantamweight Magaram Ghassanzadeh. These names hit harder than Kevin Lee. Magaram Ghassanzadeh recently fought in Rizin. Kevin Lee took to X to respond to the video saying, I don't know who posted that video or why, but I'm heading right now to find out. I can only blame myself for showing mercy and pulling my knee back, but it's training, so I thought, let me not blast him. I see I shouldn't have been playing around with that guy like that. Since MFs want to start showing sparring, I'm going to start showing sparrings from me from now on. We'd love to see it, Kevin. Online, the MMA community generally disapproves of Lee's training partner. One user wrote, bro, why were you throwing a haymaker like that in sparring? Another user even found Murali's personal Instagram saying, shitty sparring partner, it seems. Hell, even Tony Ferguson inserted himself into the situation, leaving just a little CSO with a bunch of emojis. Generally, it's not a good look to post sparring footage. It's considered quite taboo in the MMA community. But in an odd way, this is almost good promotion for the GFL. It is twisted, but seeing Kevin Lee get decked like that, to me, makes a fight between him and the aging Tony Ferguson actually look a bit more competitive. Hopefully the GFL is wise and makes that fight, or a fight for that matter, and look for this sparring footage to potentially be a talking point in the build-up. And don't be surprised if the famously delusional Kevin Lee tries to convince us all this never happened. Oh, that sparring session? That was AI. Man, I was actually sleepy that day. No Azerbaijani going to knock me out. Yeah, sparring with him's almost like sparring with Habib. Hopefully we find out where Kevin Lee fits into all of this very soon. Moving on to other news, the UFC welcomes another Topuria to the octagon this weekend. There's two Porias now, as Alexandre El Conquistador Topuria, the brother of featherweight champion Ilya El Matador Topuria, is set to make his debut against former adult film star Colby Thickness. Colby has decided to keep his stage name in his transition from adult performances to MMA. I'm just kidding. As far as I know, Colby was not a former adult performer. Although, come on, his name would be perfect for it, right? Colby Slickness Thickness. Even the nickname's on brand. But Colby Slickness Thickness is actually a 7-0 bantamweight and training partner of Alexander Volkanovski. So naturally, there is a Volk versus Ilya narrative heading into this fight, as both men will be in the opposing corners. However, I'm interested in seeing if Alexandre is anywhere near as good as his brother. His 5-1 record looks good on looks good on paper. But when you look deeper, you see he fought a guy who was 7-16 and another guy who was 1-9. Colby's resume, on the other hand, is less thin. There's some thickness to it, as he only fought one person with a losing record and won a championship on the Australian regional scene, which is one of the more competitive ones globally. Can't wait for this matchup. It gives us all a reason to tune in early on Saturday. Or Sunday if you're an Aussie. Speaking of matchups we can't wait for, an Arman Tsarukyan versus Michael Chandler bout is reportedly in the works. Which pretty much means it's a baseless rumor. That's what in the works means to me. But a couple of social media pages put up a cool little graphic about it, so we're gonna talk about it. To me, this is a slap in the face to Arman. He deserves to be fighting for the title next. But instead now, he's giving an aging veteran one last crack at a title shot. Arman has a tremendous amount to lose in this fight, while Chandler just needs to put on an exciting performance to keep his stock up. Earlier today, Michael Chandler tweeted out a palm tree. I'm no genius, but I think this symbolizes Miami. And that would line up perfectly with UFC 314. So I don't know, guys, what makes this rumor any more plausible than the Patty versus Chandler rumor, or the Volk versus Diego Lopez rumor. That's the one thing that drives me crazy about the MMA news cycle. Give me facts, not rumors. I don't want to see a bunch of palm trees with no context on my timeline. I live in California. I see enough of them. Another thing I see a lot of is Dana White's bald head on podcasts. Speaking to Tucker Carlson, the UFC president made headlines again saying he'll never retire. White hopes to achieve a similar longevity to that of his longtime rival, Bob Arum. The 94-year-old boxing promoter behind Hagler vs. Hearns is still kicking till this day, flying across the globe to see Naoya Inoue, and screaming robbery into hot microphones if he feels his fighters are being shorted. As for Dana, I don't know. I think with a little bit of Gary Brecka and a lot of TRT, Dana will probably go till 194. What do you guys think? When will Uncle Dana retire? He might want to retire after UFC 312 because this card isn't looking good, folks. When the biggest storyline coming from the event is a scummy-looking mustache on everyone's favorite teep kicker, means the pay-per-view's gonna tank. Maybe Alex Pereira being in Sean's corner will increase sales. Sean's trying to convince everyone that Pereira harbors hate and hates DDP. I don't buy that personally. I think Pereira's indifferent towards DDP. But let's give Sean Strickland some credit. He did his best to stir the pot at Media Day. He said he was mad at Bryce Mitchell for apologizing for his offensive remarks. He basically said, if you're gonna be a piece of shit, man, be a piece of shit. And he continued to stir the pot even further when he called Khamzat Chimaev a whore. This is, of course, in reference to Khamzat's relationship with a Russian dictator who allegedly showers Khamzat with G-Wagons and Rolexes. I wonder how many threats appear in Sean Strickland's DMs on the daily. That seems like a good place to call it. If you liked what you saw here today, you can subscribe to Home of Fight on YouTube. And if you tolerated my nonsense, shoot me a follow at teeballpaul on Instagram and Instagram. I don't need your follows on TikTok. I have enough. Signing off from SoCal.